Wel, gyfeillion, mae hon wedi bod yn wythnos bwysig, nid yn unig yn Plaid, ond i'n gwlad ac i'n democratiaeth. Oes, mae tipyn wedi digwydd ac mae tipyn wedi newid. Mae pob plentyn ysgol gynradd yn mynd i gael prydau ysgol yn rad ac am ddim. Gadewch i mi ddweud hynny eto. Mae pob plentyn ysgol gynradd yn mynd i gael prydau ysgol yn rad ac am ddim. A Plaid Cymru sydd wedi gwneud hynny'n reality. Rydych chi wedi gwneud hyn? Chi, aelodau Plaid Cymru, a'r ymgyrchwyr ar lawr gwlad sydd wedi llythyru, llefaru a llafurio dros newid. Heb lais y blaid, heb lais yr ymgyrchwyr, fydde hyn heb ddigwydd. Wedi cyfnod mor hir a mor dywyll i bawb, cyfnod o ynysu, o ofni ac o olaru, rwy'n timlo'n obeithiol bod pethau gwell ar ddod. I'r rheini sy'n dweud wrthych chi beth yw pwrpas gwleidyddiaeth neu pam ddylen nhw drafferthu i bleidleisio, gallwch chi ateb yn fwy pendant byth o'r wythnos hon ymlaen. Mae Plaid Cymru yn gwneud gwahaniaeth. Rydych chi wedi newid reality bywydau bob dydd y cymunedau rydyn ni ar fraint o'i cynrychioli. Achos dyna'r hyn yr oeddwn ni wedi mynd i mewn i wleidyddiaeth i gyflawni, i gael cyfiawnder i'r cymunedau a dyfais lan ynddyn nhw yn Sir Gar a Chymru gyfan. A dyna beth arall y gallwn ni ddweud wrth ffrindiau a chymdogion. Mae Plaid Cymru yn wahanol. Nid seddi moethus ceir gweinidogol sy'n yn cymell ni, ond yr angerdd i weld newid cadarnhaol yn ein cymunedau. Mae'r raglen a gyhoeddwyd yr wythnos hon yn dist i'r gwirionedd hynny. Rwy'n credu bod y cytundeb cydweithio a gyhoeddwyd yr wythnos hon ryngon ni a Llywodraeth Cymru yn nodi'r foment fwyaf arwyddocaol yn ein gwleidyddiaeth ers i ni'n ei godi cytundeb Cymru ni'n gyda llafur yn 2007. Fel Plaid, mae Plaid Cymru wastad wedi rhoi buddiannau'r genedl cyn ein buddiannau ni'n hunain. Yn yr ysbryd hwnnw, y dechreuon ni ar ein trafodaethau ar lunio cytundeb cydweithio gyda'r Llywodraeth 6 mis yn ôl. Yn wyneb y pandemig a Llywodraeth Geidwadol eliniaethus yn San Steffan, Llywodraeth sy'n benderfynol o wneud popeth yn ei gallu dan seilio yn sefydliadau cenedlaethol a frwydrwyd amdanyn nhw mor hir, roedden ni'n grediniol y bydde y meddiannau'r genedl i'n dwy blaid weithio gyda'i gilydd dros Gymru. Ar y degau tyngedfennol yn y gorffennol, mae'r blaid a llafur wedi gweithio gyda'i gilydd i sicrhau bod Cymru yn symud ymlaen fel cenedl. Yn referendum 1997, unon ni mwyn ymgyrchu a sicrhau'r cynulliad cenedlaethol. Yn referendum 2011 ac yn dilyn cytundeb hanesyddol Cymru ni'n yn 2007, fe bleidleisiodd pobl Cymru o fwyafrif sylweddol dros droi'r cynulliad yn ddeddfwrfa go iawn ein Senedd. Yn yr un modd, yn 2021, rydym yn cyd sefyll mwyn amddiffyn democratiaeth ifanc Cymru o ymysodiadau gan Lywodraeth Geidwadol San Steffan. Mewn gwrthgyferbyniad, rydym yn benderfynol o greu Senedd yma sy'n cadarnhau ei lle fel cartref democratiaeth fywiog Cymru. We will help shape a new and reformed Senedd, one that will be bigger and more diverse. It will be a Senedd which is gender balanced in law, enshrining the right to equal representation for women for the first time ever. May's election was an absolute rejection of those wanting to do away with the Senedd and is an embodiment of the overwhelming support for radical self-government. So the Senedd must also be strengthened with new powers over welfare, communications, broadcasting, policing and justice. I also believe that May's election confirmed Wales' status as an indie-curious nation, a curiosity that will give birth sooner than many think to an independent Wales. The Cross-Party Constitutional Commission will take our national constitutional journey to the next stage. It is significant that, as its co-chair, Professor Laura McAllister put it, the Commission will look at the fullest range of potential constitutional futures for Wales. Indeed, and notwithstanding the excellent work of our own Independence Commission, it will be the first time that an official body established by the Welsh Government will undertake substantive research on Welsh independence. The Commission signifies a shared understanding that we shouldn't wait for our constitutional future to be chosen for us by default, by decisions in Westminster, or indeed by developments elsewhere in these islands. It represents a determination that we should decide for ourselves. We should neither be on the sidelines nor in the shadow of deliberations elsewhere. Instead, the Commission gives us the opportunity of putting Wales at the forefront of our own debate. And I'm confident that Plaid's nominated member of the Commission, Leanne Wood, will be a powerful voice in ensuring just that. The agreement is also about providing the people of Wales with practical improvements in their everyday lives, from the tangible and immediate to the far-reaching and transformational. One of our greatest thinkers, Raymond Williams, told us that culture is ordinary. Well, so it is in politics. It's the food on the table. It's in the care of our elderly, the vibrancy of our democracy. That is the stuff of life and the stuff of this agreement. When I see my mother caring for my father, I see the basic humanity, that sense that we all depend on each other. That sense that in the end, we all share a common humanity. That is why the National Care Service will be pioneered in Wales jointly with our friends in Scotland, as was our NHS all those decades ago. A new National Care Service that will do so much to support our NHS. The NHS to whom we owe so much, with dedicated staff who have sacrificed so much and more than we could ever imagine for the sake of us all these past 18 months. We need to do so much to repay them, and the National Care Service is one of those down payments on the debt we owe them. They say that all nations are imagined. Well, we have reimagined our nation again this week. For too long, our imagination of Wales was confined to the sonnet, the song, and the stadium. Well, it still lives in all those ways, but our Senedd is the new voice of Wales' confident identity. Our Senedd will shine a light not just in the nations of these islands, but indeed increasingly on our continent and the world. As when Kiefer Moore struck the equaliser against Belgium, or Helen Ward puts another through the sticks, and when Dan Biggar kicks the crucial penalty, we scored another victory for the Welsh way this week. Friends, all of these things have been secured by the cooperation agreement announced this week. Without this agreement, they would either not be happening at all or certainly not at this pace. In our manifesto, going into the Senedd election in May, crafted out of our movement's collective intelligence, we had a detailed and visionary prospectus which served as the framework for our negotiation. The agreement means Wales starting to chart a new course to net zero by 2035 and statutory targets to tackle the nature emergency. Radical and immediate interventions to tackle the housing crisis and to reset the housing market in favour of people and communities. That family farms continue to receive the stability payments that make them viable during and beyond this Senedd term. The creation of Enos, a national construction company to improve the supply of social housing, and Cymru, a company to expand community-owned renewable energy generation. Welsh history as a mandatory part of the curriculum. An independent review of the flooding that occurred across Wales during the winters of 2020 and 2021, with a commitment to act on its recommendations. And at last, after decades of debate, turning the new National Gallery of Contemporary Art into a reality. Friends, all of these things have been secured by the cooperation agreement announced this week. Without this agreement, they would either not be happening at all or certainly not at this pace. None of these would be happening certainly without Plaid Cymru. 6 months of at times arduous negotiation have paid off. From a position of opposition in the Senedd, we have presented a Labour administration with a Plaid Cymru programme for government. It's fitting that we shall vote in the ratification of this programme at this annual conference because 2021 marks the 40th anniversary of the Carmarthen Conference of 1981, when Plaid Cymru first became, in its party aims, a decentralist socialist party. That decision, supported by Gwynfor Evans, who realised that our national movement in the community of communities that is Wales had to be rooted in the Welsh radical tradition. This is a radical agreement that represents the clearest and most decisive break with the preceding 10 years of neoliberalism that followed the end of the One Wales coalition, when Plaid Cymru last succeeded in shifting Labour in Wales to the left. Beyond its wider political significance, this programme will bring immediate and long-term benefit for the people of Wales, which is why I resolved we should do our utmost to achieve it. It's the reason it has been supported by the Plaid groups in the Senedd and at Westminster and by the National Executive. And it is the main reason why I urge you to support it when conference votes on the agreement tomorrow. I spent my time in 2 parliaments and I know which one I prefer. We shape our buildings and afterwards our buildings shape us. Those famously were Winston Churchill's words, speaking while decamped in the House of Lords as he moved a motion to rebuild the House of Commons, then in ruins following one of the last major bombing raids in London. Decrying the semi-circular parliaments common on the European mainland, he was at pains to ensure the House of Commons was rebuilt to exactly the same model of opposing benches that came to epitomise the Westminster model later copied elsewhere. Parliaments are the spaces where politics takes place and takes shape. Westminster's green benches with Her Majesty's government and opposition facing each other exactly 2 sword lengths apart are a symbol of a political culture that is adversarial by design. But that binary parliament has its roots in the anti-democratic traditions of a royal court. The mother of parliaments, as it's rather erroneously called, given Iceland's much older democracy, met for the very first time in 1215 in the nave of St. Stephen's Chapel, hence the name San Steffan in Welsh, with 2 parallel rows of subordinates, clergy and noblemen, revolving around a centrally placed monarch, now represented by the mace, as a symbol of ultimate power. That's the source of Westminster's claim of continuing supremacy and the toxic muscularity of today's unionist power grab, the 2-dimensional thinking that sees politics as a perpetual zero-sum game. Our Senedd is designed to be different. Our chamber is in the shape of a circle. Out of all the 200 national parliaments in the world, one of only a dozen or so to be based on that symbol of equality and cooperation. In a circle, everyone is equal, everyone has a voice, and everyone is focused on the problem that is placed in the middle of the circle. Politics, after all, should be more than just a game of verbal tennis where we bat the ball predictably back and forth. The ethos that circular congregation seeks to embed allows us potentially in Wales to develop a more creative politics than the sterile macho posturing of Westminster. What if instead of Westminster's culture of them and us, we built a politics where there was only us, and the central question was not who wins and who loses, but what we can do together? Now, creative politics sounds like an oxymoron, a bit like non-profit banking, but we're about to bring that back too in Wales, aren't we, with Bank Cambria, and heartfelt thanks to visionaries like Mark Hooper and Tegid Roberts for their pioneering work in this area. With the big banking corporations leaving our communities high and dry, we need Welsh social innovation now more than ever. But we desperately need to innovate in our politics too, if we are going to be able to address the great challenges of our age, not least the task of getting Wales independence ready. For that new creative politics to take root, we need a new political culture built on trust and mutual respect, and that does mean a capacity to reach across our political differences. Our Welsh radicalism should be resolutely non-tribal and non-sectarian. We should work with patriots and socialists in all progressive parties and movements, as we're doing with the Green Party and civic campaigners in the capital. If we do manage to build a more creative, more collaborative politics, then it has the potential to transform our democracy. With more people stepping forward to serve and more young people engaged in our politics because they're tuned in, not turned off, we will create the more diverse, more inclusive democracy that we need if we are together to solve our many problems and realise our full potential. Maybe some of you watching today will be inspired to put your names forward for next year's council elections or for the elections to the 7th Senedd, a Senedd that will better represent the Wales of today and prefigure the independent Wales of tomorrow. As the Welsh Government says, the cooperation agreement is an ambitious and far-reaching policy programme, or as we would say, it's a nation-building programme for government which will change the lives of thousands of people the length and breadth of our country for the better. All this entails Plaid Cymru transforming itself from a traditional opposition party in the Westminster sense to something new and refreshingly different, a co-opposition party, cooperating where possible while continuing to oppose and to scrutinise and criticise when necessary. There's no precedent for what we're about to embark upon in the politics of these islands. It's a unique Welsh departure from the British Constitution, a down payment, if you like, on independence, though similar arrangements have happened elsewhere, notably in Scandinavian countries such as Sweden, Denmark and Norway, and in Commonwealth countries such as New Zealand. Small nations all breaking the mould of politics as usual. What we have crafted in this agreement is an approach entirely new in the political culture we've grown up with and are used to. It will require as much innovation and agility in its implementation as in its formation. But however you describe it, and whatever you call it, it's not oppositionism for opposition's sake. There are some attractions maybe to oppositionism, but the deeper question in politics is not who or what we are against, but what are we really for? At the heart of our politics, in this party above all else, lies the idea of a Welsh demos, a Welsh political nationhood which transcends party, which embodies values more enduring and more important than anything that divides us. For Wales to be free, we must first be united. And that is what this cooperation agreement sets out to achieve. It launches us on a pathway to a united Wales, one that sooner than perhaps we think will find it both comfortable and natural, indeed essential, to join the world community of normal, independent nations. As I said this week on the Senedd steps, if passed tomorrow, the cooperation agreement is set to start on the first day of winter. Through it, we will plant together the seed beneath the snow of a new society, a new Wales, a new beginning. The agreement is, to quote the Western Mail's headline, a huge step forward for Wales. Tomorrow, let's take that huge step forward, together, united as a nation that soon will be free.